At 6:08 p.m., a tow truck sat idling at my gate like it had every right in the world to be there, its engine rumbling on my driveway. Three people in HOA vests gripping the latch, and Karen McKellen standing just behind them, arms folded, staring at my pond like it was already printed in her neighborhood brochure. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, and when I glanced down, it was a single message from my attorney. Gina, short enough to feel like a verdict. The court issued the order. I didn't buy 6 quiet acres in Missouri to fight anyone. I bought it to stop fighting. I wanted land that didn't come with meetings, committees, or strangers telling me how to live. No shared fences, no community standards, no laminated rules taped to mailboxes, just dirt, trees, a half-wild pond, and a house I built myself on weekends with sore hands and cheap coffee. My daughter Lily came out there with me when she was little. We fished, we grilled, we sat on the dock at dusk and let the world get quiet the way it's supposed to. That place was never meant to belong to anyone but us. The first letter came in the mail on a Tuesday, tucked between a hardware store flyer and a water bill. Clearbrook Shores HOA, printed neatly at the top. The kind of logo designed to look official without actually meaning anything. The tone was polite in that fake, syrupy way that assumes obedience before you've even opened the envelope. It reminded me that pond use should be limited from 6:00 a.m. to 6:00 p.m. to preserve harmony within the community. It didn't ask. It didn't explain. It just implied that compliance was already a given. I remember holding the paper and thinking, this has nothing to do with me. I never joined an HOA. I never signed anything. In my world, a letter from an organization I don't belong to is just paper. So I ignored it. A week later, I had a small cookout. 6 people, low music, nothing loud or obnoxious. Around 7:15 p.m., I noticed movement near the lower trail that runs along my boundary line. 3 figures appeared, reflective vests catching the last light, one holding a clipboard, another with a phone raised like evidence. And then there was her. Platinum bob, pressed blouse, that calm, predatory confidence people get when they've pushed others around for years without consequences. I stepped forward and kept my feet planted firmly on my side of the line. "Evening," I said. "Can I help you?" The man with the clipboard didn't introduce himself. He didn't even look at me. "HOA compliance," he said. "After hours pond use is prohibited." Before I could respond, the woman stepped in, smooth and practiced. "I'm Karen McKellen, president of Clearbrook Shores. We've received complaints. That pond area is under quiet, hours restriction." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give her anything to chew on. "I'm not in your HOA," I said. "This is private property. If you step onto my land, you're trespassing." Her smile tightened, like a ratchet clicking into place. "Community features don't always follow deed lines," she said. "Residents have expectations." "Expectations don't rewrite surveys," I answered. The clipboard guy kept filming, clearly hoping I'd lose my temper. I didn't. I pulled out my phone and started recording them instead. "I'm calling the sheriff to document this contact," I said, flat and calm. "You can stand there, but you don't enforce anything here." They backed off together, retreating up the trail with the same synchronized stiffness they'd arrived with. No panic, no apology, just calculation. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a test. The next morning, I pulled out my deed, the tax sales certificate, the survey, everything I had. I installed cameras facing the gate, the dock, and the lower trail. If someone wanted to build a false story about my land, I was going to build a true one faster. The second letter came a few days later, this time in a brown envelope stamped Notice of Violation. 3 pages long, time-stamped photos of me and my guests by the pond, a fine for $40, written in bold like they were a court instead of a homeowners club with delusions of power. I forwarded it to Gina Hart, my attorney. She called me back within an hour. They're claiming your pond is a community green zone on their internal development map, she said. Internal maps don't beat county records, I replied. They're betting you won't go pull the originals, she said. So I did. I drove to the county recorder's office myself and asked for certified copies of older plats and surveys. Anything that existed before Clearbrook Shores was even a marketing name. The clerk handed me stamped documents that were crystal clear. My pond sat inside an old agricultural tract. No easements, no shared designations, no green zone. I scanned everything and sent it to Gina. For a moment, I felt steady again, like facts alone would be enough to end it. That didn't last. The harassment shifted from paper to people. My guests started getting targeted. One coworker texted me a photo of a note left on his windshield at home in town. You were observed aiding unauthorized access to community water assets. It was meant to scare them away from me, to make my property feel radioactive. Then the narrative campaign started. A flyer showed up at the feed store. A grainy dusk photo of my dock, with a moralizing message about selfish landowners. On the Clearbrook neighborhood page, an anonymous account ranted about me blocking children from a beloved community pond. The tone was sweet, almost caring, but the goal was obvious. Turn a theft attempt into a virtue crusade. That was when doubt crept in. Late at night, sitting alone at the kitchen table, I started asking myself questions I hated. Am I the bad guy here? Is it worth fighting an entire neighborhood? What if this never stops? There was a moment, a real one, where I thought about selling, about walking away, about letting them win just so I could have peace again. It felt like being worn down grain by grain, not by force, but by pressure. Then I started looking at listings near the southern edge of Clearbrook, houses that faced my trees. And there it was, repeated like a script. Pond access, evening water views, community nature amenity. Karen's name on the agent line. My stomach dropped. They weren't confused. They weren't mistaken. They were selling my pond as a feature. I screenshotted everything, every listing, every date stamp, every phrase implying ownership. I sent the file to Gina. She didn't sound surprised. This isn't about harmony, she said. It's about value. Then I'm going to treat it like fraud, I told her. That's when it crossed from manipulation into damage. One morning, I walked down to the water and smelled chemicals before I saw anything. The pond had a pale, cloudy tint, like pigment dumped straight into it. 2 fish floated belly up near the rocks. I didn't rage. I documented everything. Photos, video, a water sample in a clean jar. Then I pulled the camera footage. 3 figures came through the lower trail after midnight. Dark clothes, reflective armbands. One carried a bucket. Another stood watch. On the road, partly hidden, a white SUV idled. I couldn't see the driver's face, but I could see the stillness of someone supervising. Karen didn't need to carry the bucket. She just needed to authorize the people who would. I went straight to the sheriff with the footage, the photos, the sample. I filed reports for trespass, property damage, and harassment. I didn't plead. I asked for a case number and wrote it down. Gina sent a cease and desist to the HOA and to Karen directly. It laid out the facts, attached evidence, and copied the State Real Estate Licensing Board. Not for drama, because paper trails matter when people pretend reality is flexible. That should have ended it. Instead, Karen escalated into a public show. Which brings me back to my gate at 6:08 p.m. Clipboard guy stood there again, another HOA vest beside him, and a third man, broad-shouldered, polished jacket, smug stare, hovering close like hired muscle without a uniform. Karen stayed behind them, the way commanders do when they don't want to touch the battlefield. Clipboard guy held up an official-looking document, a notice of restricted access, complete with seals and bold fonts designed to fool people who don't know what real county notices look like. Karen spoke like she was doing me a favor. After 6 o'clock, this area is an environmental safety buffer. Your guests are banned from being near the pond. Effective immediately. Her son leaned forward. You need to comply, he said, like intimidation counted as authority. I took the notice between two fingers and glanced at it once. This is counterfeit, I said, calm and clear. Karen's smile widened. Be careful accusing us, she said. Defamation gets expensive. I lifted my phone so all of them were in frame. Say it again, I told her. And explain on camera why you brought a tow truck onto a private drive you have no easement to use. Her son scoffed. You can't record us. This is my property, I said, and you're standing on it. Karen made a small hand gesture, barely visible, like permission. Clipboard guy's hand moved toward my gate latch. That's the line, I said, steady. Don't cross it. She looked at me like she'd already won. The judge will grant our injunction, she said. You'll take down your signage. You'll stop hosting people near that pond after 6. That was the psychological peak. Her certainty, her performance, her belief that paper and pressure could replace ownership. I didn't argue. I didn't threaten. I tapped my screen. Gina, you're on speaker. Gina's voice came through crisp and level. Karen, the court issued the temporary order. No enforcement actions. No communications claiming the pond is a community asset. No further mapping changes without independent review. If your people touch that gate, the sheriff treats it as trespass. Karen's posture shifted. Just a fraction. The smile stayed, but it lost its foundation. Gina continued. Also, your affidavit witness is an actor. We filed proof. And county logs show the GIS overlay changes tied to Clearbrook submissions. The judge ordered an audit. Karen's son turned toward her. Mom, he said quietly, for the first time. Karen stopped performing. Get back, she snapped to her crew. Clipboard guy stepped away from the latch like it burned him. The tow truck never dropped a hook. They retreated in silence. Karen didn't look back at my pond as she got into the SUV, because looking back would mean admitting it was never hers. That night, after 6:00 p.m., I walked down to the water anyway. Not to celebrate, to confirm reality still existed where she'd tried to bend it. The surface was dark. The air was cold. The dock boards were quiet under my boots. My cameras sat there doing their simple job. Watching, recording, refusing to forget. The only notice that mattered now came from a court, not an HOA. I stood there long enough to hear nothing but water against wood. Then I turned and went inside. Power only works when people believe in it. And the moment you stop believing, it collapses.